many people think that inflation is the root cause for rise in agricultural products. When we talk about the general price level, the normal level at which we are expected to move further. Sometimes you would start seeing that the raw material cost itself is so high that the finished product goes much more beyond the imagination. Good morning and welcome to the Session 4, Chapter 2, Unit 1, First Semester B.Ba, Pre-Reforms of Indian Economy, where we are going to talk about agricultural price policy. In this session, we are going to talk about why the primary goal of Indian agricultural policy is so very complicated. Why? Because once we start understanding this factor, you need to see that the agricultural policy has maintained a very reasonable link between agricultural grain prices and that of the non-food grain prices also. So there has been a link between the commodity factor and that of the trade as what we are trying to see here. So, when we start seeing about this agricultural policy, one has to be very clear about what is the connection between the food production and that of the non-food production activities altogether. Now, as we go here, the agricultural policy of India has been developed by the government for the agriculture products so that the farmers receive fair prices to encourage or to motivate the spend among the agriculture, keeping in mind the government to announce the minimum support price. So this becomes very, very important for the major agricultural products that are being grown every year. Somewhere down the lane, Government of India understood that farmers need to be protected, and if they have to be protected, we need to give them a minimum support price for each and every produce that they are bringing into the market. Now, what happens in India is that the farmer is trying to produce, but he is not able to get the sufficient price in a return, which makes him to say that somewhere down the line, he is not able to make profit. So what we want here, the government, is that to come forward, motivate the farmers and say that for each and every agricultural produce, we will give you a minimum support price. It is like a price ceiling factor that we are going to give here, or a push factor here, so that you will be able to give some sort of support back to the farmers. Now, the government provides food grains to the below poverty line families through the public distribution system. So that is very, very important. We're going to learn about this factor called as PDS, the public distribution system. These policies and these prices are fixed after consulting the Commission for Agricultural Cost Factor. So there is a committee, there are members who actually join hands together in terms of understanding how the prices need to be set across according to the demand and the supply function here. Many a times it becomes so important for all of us to understand that can we go further in terms of understanding how to bring forward the growth, the distribution activity and the related activities all together so that we are able to see growth, we are able to see that push coming forward. Now, the other thing that we are interested to interested to learn about, what I would always like to say, is that the prices are purely dependent on the natural factors like the weather, climate, and then the consumption pattern. So the government always intervenes, tries to find out what can be the best price that can be suited on that particular time for that particular product, so that the farmer is not left alone. And at the same time, the farmer should also understand that the governmental policies have been created in such a manner that they can get as close as possible in terms of bringing in a brighter future to him. Followed by the Commission of Agriculture Cost and Prices. What we typically look in as a committee is the cost of production, the change in input prices, input-output price parity, trends in market, intercrop parity, demand and supply. So probably as we look through the economics of agriculture, it's quite complicated. Of course, one cannot just take a yardstick and measure and say that exactly this would be the production cost or this much would be the production output terms altogether, but then we try to play with the supply and demand factors closely to understand what could be the exact feature, what could be the exact challenges in terms of producing that particular crop. Now, let's say that when you are going to talk about cash crops, or when you're going to talk about the plantation base, or you're going to talk about the non-food grains, there are different parameters on which the market will look into it. Now, for example, the cost of producing sugarcane might not be the same cost of producing rice. At that point of time, the change in input prices, the change in the labor factors, the change in market prices, everything has to be calculated by this committee, which will try to understand what are the changes that are being exactly enacted, that are coming across. Why? Because sometimes we might feel that suddenly the price of coffee is going up, the price of tea is coming down, pepper is going up, or turmeric is going up, because this is not just about the factor that the inflation comes into picture. Many people think that inflation is the root cause for rise in agricultural products. Now, that might be one long story, but the reality is that these factors have also been taken into consideration. You need to know what is the cost of production. You need to know that whether there are alternative products available in the market. Plus, you would also try to understand what is the intercrop demand and parity factor, how is the demand supply situation that's going on in the market. So all these things would make a huge difference for the farmers as well as for the committee to judge and determine whether these things can be taken into account, whether these things will actually make a difference. Now, followed by when we start thinking about the industrial cost structure also. Now, let's look into the factor of sugarcane to sugar, which this is one industry which India really is known for. Why? Because India is also one of the leading sugar bowls of the world, and Uttar Pradesh being the largest producer, followed by Maharashtra also, which is one of the two largest states where sugarcane is produced in huge quantity. The conversion cost from sugarcane to sugar, of course, this matters a lot as the price of ethanol and other factors also come into picture. So you would be also seeing that whenever we are talking about conversion here, there is an industrial cost that comes into picture. So the economics of conversion cost, the economics of understanding how much factors are involved, how much it is needed, how we need to go about it, and what are all the different factors of parities that has been involved. Based on that would be the commission able to set the price. Now, followed by the general price level also, which also coming into picture. Why? Because when we talk about the general price level, the normal level at which we are expected to move further. Now, suppose you might feel that at one point of time, generally the price is about, let's say, 250 rupees a kg. But then now what happens is that if the price shoots too high, like 350, 400, or if it comes down too low, like 100 or 120 rupees, people suddenly start getting worried or jittery about it. They suddenly start thinking that how is this going to happen? How is this going to take forward? So what we typically tend to do is that we typically understand this entire business with its own factors here. So now that's why I would always say that the cost of living also matters to us. The international market price situations, those also comes into picture. The parity between the paid and the prices received, this will also matter as we are talking about today. Followed by, we are also worried about the motives and advantages. That's what we are talking about in terms of the minimum support price. What is the minimum support price? If exactly I have to tell you, is that this is like a price floor kind of a thing. We don't allow the price to fall below this particular level. Why? Because we want the situation of production, whatever it might be. It might be on the higher side or it might be on the lower side. But we don't want the farmers to get affected at any point of time. Now, that's the entire objective in our mind. So let's say that we are coming to the situation to prevent the fall in price of the situation in terms of the production. Now, there might be a scenario Now let's take tomato itself. Many a times you would have read in the newspaper that the farmers got agitated over the excess production of tomato, and the tomato prices just went down. It just crashed rock bottom, and absolutely the farmers were left in a lurch. Why? Because the price of tomatoes did not even match to the cost of production at any point. It went way below that. So what happens there is that the farmer is not even able to recover the minimum cost, and he lands up into severe debt, by which it also leads into unwanted situations like committing of suicide. Now what we want here in terms of understanding the minimum support price is that whatever might be the condition, whether you're going to talk about a great season or you're going to talk about a normal season of production, I want the price to be fixed at a particular level so that the farmer does not go in loss. So that's why the minimum support price is a very important concept or a function that we are raising around in terms of understanding the situation, followed by to protect the interest of the farmers by ensuring them a minimum price in their crops in the situation of the price factors that we are talking about, especially the fall in the market. Now, to meet the domestic consumption factors, that's also very much required. Why? Because when we talk about the Indian market as such, the Indian market is something which is a very huge market that we are talking about, and this market is about worth the size of about 130 plus billion people. So the consumption lines are pretty much huge. Now what happens here is that moment you start looking into the bottom of the pyramid and you start thinking that yes, I'm going to reap huge sales because I have a bigger population to cater, it might not be true always. People would start bargaining, the prices might come down, the middleman coming into picture. In order to avoid all this, what we do is that we fix a price. We say that, okay, let the minimum price be 200 rupees per kg, 50 rupees per kg, whatever the numbers are, so that the domestic part is also taken care and the farmer is also taken care. Plus, many a time, the farmer also finds a difficulty in managing the crop itself because it's affected by so many factors that we are not able to justify. Now, let's try to understand those factors that are coming into picture. Now, those factors might be suddenly a damage that happens purely because of the factor that there was a flood, there was some natural calamity, some sort of a pest attack that happened on that. So all these things could probably put the farmer's morale completely down, which we do not want to happen in the near future. And the last thing that we want always to see is the price stability in the agriculture product. Agricultural market or the commodities market is as good as any other market, I would like to say. But nevertheless, what happens in India is that people do not trade much or do not know much about the agricultural product, because we look at agriculture as a consumable product. So we don't look at it as a trading factor altogether. But there is a big market, there is a larger setup, and there are people who look into this setup altogether. So what they see is that, for example, if there is a price trading at 420, let's say that it might be a turmeric, it might be pepper, it might be bananas or whatever that we are talking about, that 420 has got some value altogether. 450 rupees might be the next value at which people are looking at, or there might be sometimes people might be looking at the price to come down at 380, some numbers. So what I'm trying to say here is that the agricultural product will also have a quantifiable value. Unless and until we are able to bring stability in the market, people will not have trust over the product. The product cannot be taken lightly. The product cannot be taken for an advantage and said that let it go on in a price altogether. It is not something like a gold or silver. More than gold and silver, food is important. So you need to give that sort of stability and importance to the agricultural product. Now, moving further, we also understand that a reasonable relationship between the prices in agricultural commodities has to be set, and wherever we find the price difference has to be removed between the two regions of the country, it has to be done. Why? Because many times you might find that once you turn the packet, you might find that in one particular state the price is 20 rupees, in another particular state the price might be 22 or 24 rupees. Now that happens because of the transport costs or because of the the natural factors, the conditions of growth and other things. But nevertheless, what we want to see here is that the price and the product should have a reasonable relation. The next factor is that once the production is suitable enough and we have a reasonable quality, we are looking into the word called as exports, through which we can earn a lot of money. And we know that India, being an agricultural land which is able to produce thousands and thousands of tons of a particular product, let's say it can be on rice, or it can be on sugar, or it can be probably on any other products that we are talking about, we are also looking into the export markets very seriously. Why? Because India has a capacity to earn foreign exchange through agriculture. Secondly, we want this market also to become a part of the FDI journey, and it also become a part of the growth story, because for so many years we have only been concentrating on manufacturing and services and we forgot about the agriculture. Today, if we promote exports in this particular sector, automatically people will get motivated and they will take up this business seriously. And next thing is that raw materials to different kinds of industries at a reasonable price. As I was talking about sugarcane and sugar factors, there are so many other products also available in the market where the dependency on the raw materials versus that of finished product is very high. Sometimes you would start seeing that the raw material cost itself is so high that the finished product goes much more beyond the imagination. Now, that's why what we try to do is that the procurement of raw material should be made available, should be made easy for the industries, so that the finished product is available at a reasonable price for the retailers here. Now, the next thing is that what are the disadvantages that we are talking about? One of the major disadvantages is that the poor people of the country have to pay more, because that might not be what they're looking at. Let's say that even the base level MSP, we fix it at 300 rupees, but then that becomes too much for people to pay. So the poor people will not be able to do it, and the practice will create problem to allocate inefficiency in the country. Yes, because we might not be able to run the entire operation smoothly here. Followed by subsidizing farmer through higher product prices is an inefficient method altogether. And what you do in turn is that once you are trying to support the farmer, but you are trying to penalize the customer altogether. So one person's benefit might be the other person's burning altogether. So now what happens here is that people will start seeing that you are trying to save a community or protect a community from one side, but from the other side, the consumers are affected because of the higher prices. That means to say that large farmers will benefit the most. Yeah, of course, yes. Why? Because when you have acres and acres of land, or when I'm going to talk about the corporate farming sector altogether, probably they will get a lot of benefit, but the retail customers, whom I'm trying to say the end users, will be severely affected. Why? Because there might be a huge price difference that we might be talking about. Plus, all we need to understand is this group of people called as the small farming community. There are a lot of people in India who might still surviving with that 1 acre, 1.5 acres, 2 acres kind of story. They are still farmers. I mean, you cannot deny the fact that since they do not have large acres of land, but still they are farmers, and they also believe that farming will show them some light at the end of tunnel. But what happens here is that by giving these subsidies, by trying to protect a community, a particular sector altogether, and pushing that sector with the maximum benefit, the poor man, again coming back to the story of the common man in India, definitely gets affected. The common man is not able to get back on his steps. He feels that he's completely thrown out. He's out of gear altogether. So that should not be happening. And you need to see that the common man is also able to derive some benefits out of here. Followed by the farmers use fertilizers in huge quantity to increase the production, which is a direct impact on the health. Of late, after the pandemic, we have been talking about the healthcare to a very great extent, like never before. And with the awareness that is coming into the minds of consumer, where people are becoming conscious day by day, at the same rate the diseases are also increasing, the complications of human life is also increasing. People have suddenly started questioning about this factor, the impact of fertilizers on their food. So many people are switching to organic method of food or the organically grown food, because they feel that this fertilizers could directly affect their health. And the farmers on other side, because they don't have an option, they just want to increase their production, they start putting in too much of fertilizers just to increase their output. Followed by which the conclusion that we are trying to come here is that the basic motive behind the agriculture policy is to save the interest of both farmers and consumer. So we need to strike a balance between the farmer and the consumer. Now, you cannot have a policy which is supporting only one particular section and leaving the other. So we need the prices, we need the policy to be decided wisely in such a manner that both the people are getting the maximum benefit. And that is the only way possible that we will be able to see that the agriculture policy will support and both the consumers and the farmers are be given the maximum benefit. With this, I come to the end of this particular session. I hope and believe that all the factors and the theory that has been told through this session would be of a great value to you, both in terms of exam, also in the practical walk of life. In the upcoming session, we will be talking about the industrial policy and how the industrial policy shaped the modern India altogether. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful presentation. Thank you.